Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. He pushed a stiff document across the table and told me to sign. My name is Emma. I was 28 and suddenly mute. The ring on my hand felt heavier than the paper between us. He watched my face like he was waiting for a wrong answer. I knew it was a prenup before I even touched it. You know that drop in your stomach when something flips the room? I tried to swallow it down and sound calm, adult, reasonable. Inside, it felt more like a quiz than a conversation, and I hated quizzes. What is this? My voice came out flatter than I meant. He tapped the last page with one quick finger, no smile anywhere. Protection, just sign it and we're good. His eyes never left mine. Writing this now, I hear the word protection and my jaw tightens. Back then, I told myself he was just cautious, maybe even smart. People get divorced, money gets messy, I understand that in theory. Still, the timing hit wrong, like a joke dropped at a funeral. We had been talking about cake flavors an hour before this. I pulled the document closer just to buy a little time. My hands shook, so I flattened my palms on the table. He noticed, of course he noticed, and his shoulders tensed like a threat. I need to know you're not here for my bank account. That sentence cut through my little attempt at staying calm. Not here for his bank account, not here for his money. The way he said it turned me from partner into suspect instantly. I laughed once, sharp and ugly, because I did not know what else to do. Do you really think I'm chasing you for cash? I stared at him. He rubbed his forehead and looked more tired than angry for a second. It's not about you, it's about what happened before. His jaw clenched hard. He threw that line out like it explained everything and nothing. I flipped pages, not really reading, just seeing blocks and signatures. Every clause protected him, his savings, his house, his future freedom. Anything joint was tiny, conditional, there if I passed some invisible exam. My name appeared mainly in sentences about waiving rights and walking away. Why are you showing me this now? I pushed the pages back. He leaned in, elbows on the table, fingers woven tight together. Because we're booking the venue this week. Before that, I need certainty. Certainty, not trust, not teamwork, certainty like a locked door behind him. I remember thinking maybe this is how grown-ups handle risk. Maybe I was naive for expecting a simple yes from him. I started defending him in my head before I even answered out loud. That habit, that reflex to justify him, would cost me later. Out loud, I tried something softer, something halfway between hurt and logic. You already know how I live, you see my bank balance. My cheeks burned as I said it because I hated that fact. We split bills, we planned together. When exactly did I act like a leech? He pushed his chair back a little, not enough to leave, just enough. You're great with day-to-day stuff, I'm not saying you're greedy. My chest loosened for a second, then he landed the next part. But this is about worst-case scenarios, about if everything falls apart. He talked about risk and responsibility while his hands stayed very still. I watched his knuckles instead of his eyes because my own prickled. I have more to lose, that's just math. He kept his tone almost bored. That word math made me feel like a variable, not a person. Okay, say I sign, what do I get? I pushed back again. It sounded colder than I planned, but maybe that helped for once. His mouth twitched like he wanted to smile but did not trust it. You get proof this isn't about money for you, that's huge. There it was, the test, the invisible grading scale I had felt. Sign it and you pass, hesitate and you expose some greedy core. Even now, remembering that logic, I feel my shoulders rise defensively. Back then I actually nodded, like the idea almost made sense. I tried to slow things down because everything felt rushed and cornered. Can I at least read it properly, maybe talk to someone neutral? His eyes hardened a little, like I had suggested betraying some secret. Why do you need a lawyer if you have nothing to hide? That question hit me harder than the prenup itself, honestly. Lawyers are for enemies, right? That was the tone under his words. If I wanted another opinion, I was already treating him like a threat. It turned a simple request into another piece of supposed evidence. I stared at the signature line and my name printed beneath it. Emma in a font I did not choose, ready to lock in his comfort. My hand shook when I uncapped the pen, which annoyed me more. Fear and anger mixed until I could not tell which one led. I'm not signing anything tonight, I placed the pen back down. The silence stretched wide between us, louder than our entire argument. He pressed his lips together, then looked at the document like it failed him. If you walk away from this, maybe we should rethink everything. That line was the real ultimatum, not written anywhere on paper. My heart slammed so hard I thought he heard it across the table. I wanted to shout to throw the stupid thing out the window. Instead, I heard myself say, rethink what exactly? Our engagement, the timeline, all of it. His voice came out flat. He picked up the prenup and squared the edges with careful precision. You say you're not here for money, that this is about us. Then prove it, sign or admit this is a deal breaker. I wish I could say I stood up and left right then. I wish I could write that I walked out with clear dignity. Instead, I stared at his hands and counted my breaths like a child. Fear of losing him wrestled with disgust at being tested like that. After a long minute, I pushed the document back toward him again. Leave it here, I will look it over properly tomorrow, alone. He watched me for a few seconds, searching my face for something. Then he nodded once slow and set the envelope by my plate. We went to bed without another word, bodies close but minds miles apart. The envelope stayed on the table, a quiet dare waiting for morning. Back then, I saw it as a challenge I could somehow win. Now, writing this, I see it as the first line he drew between us. He flipped open a notebook and drew a line straight down. Left side is me, right side is you, his pen scratched fast. The prenup envelope still sat on the counter behind us. I remember thinking, so we are doing this instead now. He wrote headings in quick block letters and underlined each one. Rent, utilities, food, gas, extras. He paused on that last word. Then he looked up like a teacher waiting for a nervous student. We need clarity, no surprises, you agree with that, right? I tucked my feet under me and forced my shoulders to drop. Sure, clarity sounds good. I hated how careful my voice sounded. The argument from the night before sat between us like static. I thought maybe this was his way of fixing things somehow. He pulled out his phone and opened his banking app with focus. Okay, last month we go through everything line by line. He angled the screen toward me like an exhibit in a trial. I could actually feel my pulse climb just seeing my own charges. Grocery store split makes sense. He put a little mark in one column. Gas, yours, fine, another mark, another tiny note in his neat writing. Then he hit a coffee shop charge and paused for half a second. This one, was I with you or was that just you? I tried to remember which day it was and came up empty. It was probably on my way to work. I rubbed my thumb hard. So just you, he put it under my side with a quick stroke. It adds up, little things stack, that is what I am watching. Watching, not sharing, that choice of words snagged on something inside me. Still, I leaned forward and tried to engage like this was normal. Couldn't we just agree on a number for each every month? If it is too complicated, we will end up fighting later. He slid the notebook closer until it pressed against my knees. Look, we list every regular expense, then we assign them fairly. He circled a few categories with short, firm motions, no hesitation anywhere. You handle groceries and part of rent, I handle everything over that. It sounded reasonable out loud, at least on the surface. It also sounded like a structure someone could use as a weapon. I shoved that thought down and nodded slowly, trying to be practical. I need to know what my limit is then, a clear number. He frowned only a little, like I had missed something obvious. It is not just about totals, it is how you spend too. He tapped the coffee shop entry again, softer but more pointed now. This kind of thing, often, that is lifestyle inflation, that scares me. The word scared twisted the air between us more than I expected. We were not talking about monsters, we were talking about a latte. But his shoulders tightened and his jaw flexed like this was huge. That is how it started last time, small charges, casual spending, disaster. I heard that last line and every part of me wanted detail. Instead of asking, I swallowed the questions and focused on staying useful. Okay, then I will track those, I will cut them down. I offered that like a peace gift and also a promise. He nodded once, satisfied, and sketched another row across the page. Here we do a monthly summary together, sit down, review everything. He met my eyes and held them there until I looked away first. If you are comfortable, this should not feel like pressure at all. Comfortable, that word stuck in my throat like a dry pill. Audits are not usually described as comforting, but I kept that thought quiet. I just do not want money talks to become our only talks. My hands laced together so tight my knuckles nearly ached with it. He softened for a moment and reached out fingers, brushing my wrist. That is exactly why I am doing this. Structure prevents chaos later. He smiled then, quick and controlled, like he was selling a product. If we get this right now, we never have to fight about it. Looking back, that sentence bothers me more than the notebook. Life does not work on if we get this right, then never. At that point, though, I wanted to believe in some magic system. So I let that sales pitch sink in and nodded again. We spent the next hour sorting transactions into neat little stacks. Every time a charge popped up under my card, I tensed first. When it was clearly shared, I relaxed and marked it as joint. When it looked personal, I rushed to explain why I bought it. That dress, was that for work or for fun? He tapped the line. Work dinner, I answered a little too fast, cheeks heating for no reason. Then professional image, that is acceptable, just do not make it a habit. The way he graded my answer made the word habit feel like a threat. By the time we finished, my neck hurt and my head throbbed. He leaned back, satisfied, like we had accomplished something important together. This is good, now I can see patterns, you can see mine too. He slid the notebook toward the middle, as if that made it equal. Do I get to check your spending like that? The question slipped out. His eyes flickered very quick before he chuckled and shook his head. You already know I am careful, I barely buy anything for myself. That was not an answer, but at the time I let it pass. Instead, I pushed toward compromise again because that felt safer somehow. How about this? We both log our purchases in here every week. I tapped the blank bottom section, trying to sound collaborative, not scared. Not just mine, both, then it really is shared transparency, not just mine. He hesitated a fraction, then picked up the pen and wrote his name. Fine, weekly check-ins, both of us, I can live with that. He added a note about dates and totals, everything tidy and controlled. I just need to see you are on the same page as me. That phrasing hit me like I was behind in some class. Still, I smiled, tired and wired, and said I was all in. Inside, I felt like I had just agreed to an open inspection. I did not realize inspections often come with suspicion baked in. That night when I went to buy groceries, I moved slower. I stood in the aisle and looked at two versions of the same item. I picked the cheaper one automatically, then took a photo of the receipt. I told myself it was responsible, not desperate, but my chest said otherwise. Back home, I spread the receipt beside the notebook and started writing. Line after line, I copied each purchase into the proper little spot. I caught myself wanting to cross out items that seemed personal or indulgent. Instead, I pressed harder on the pen, like pressure could erase guilt. He walked in halfway through and glanced at the page without comment. His lips ticked up at one corner, almost proud, almost relieved. See, this is all I ever wanted, just awareness and discipline. He kissed my forehead lightly and went to check his phone. That tiny gesture should have felt tender, but it landed oddly. Like a reward sticker after a quiz I had not agreed to take. I watched him scroll while my own numbers stared up from the paper. That was the first moment I wondered if love should feel like homework. I jerked the mailbox open and 3 thick envelopes dropped onto my hand. Each one had a huge red warning stamp across the front. My stomach clenched before I even read the return address. I knew instantly these were not coupons or wedding flyers. I walked back up the stairs slower than usual, fingers tight around them. Part of me wanted to shove them in a drawer and pretend. Another part wanted proof that my unease about money was real. In the end, curiosity and fear teamed up and pushed me forward. I set the envelopes on the table and just stared for a moment. All 3 had his name, never mine, printed in harsh block letters. I pressed a nail under the flap of the first one and hesitated. Opening someone else's mail felt wrong, but building a life blind felt worse. The paper inside crackled when I pulled it free and flattened it. Big bold numbers jumped out first, then the words past due above them. Interest fees, some kind of penalty I did not understand at all. My chest started pounding so hard I almost dropped the page. The second one mentioned collections and a balance that made my throat dry. The third threatened further action if no payment plan was arranged soon. By the bottom of that letter, my hands were shaking again. I remember thinking, why am I learning about this from strangers? The door opened while I still had everything spread across the table. His keys hit the counter and he called my name like any other day. I did not answer because my focus was glued to those totals. He walked in, saw tea. He envelopes and his whole body snapped tight. "What are you doing?" His voice dropped sharp and low, not loud. He crossed the room fast and grabbed the nearest page from under my hand. For a second, he looked more panicked than angry, which scared me more. I pulled the last letter closer to keep him from sweeping them all away. "You weren't going to tell me about any of this," my voice cracked. I stood up too quickly and the chair scraped hard behind me. "This is our future, these are huge debts, how was I not told?" He crumpled the edge of the letter as his fingers tightened around it. "This is private, you went through my mail." His jaw worked while he glared. He stacked the envelopes together, movements jerky like they burned his skin. "You do not get to open everything with my name on it." That stung because I had his ring in my pocket every single day. Private is one thing, threats of legal action are another thing. I pointed at the logo on the page still beside my hand. "They are talking about wage garnishment and default and whatever this means. If they come for your paycheck, they come for our life too." He dragged a hand over his face and finally sat down hard. For a moment, he stared at the table instead of at me. "This is old, it is handled, they just keep sending letters." That might have worked if I had not seen the fresh dates. I pushed the top page toward him and tapped the timestamp near the top. "This is from last week, that is not old, that is recent." My voice was shaking now from anger more than fear, which surprised me. If this is under control, why are they still threatening more steps? His eyes darted over the line I pointed to, then away. "They exaggerate to scare you, that is their whole business model." He laughed once, short and humorless, and kept his gaze on the corner. "That woman put me here, I am still digging out of her crater." There it was, dropped into the room like an accusation against a ghost. I had heard hints before, but never with numbers attached like this. Her, I repeated the word and felt heat crawl up my neck. What exactly did she do that resulted in 3 collection agencies calling? He leaned back, shoulders pressed against the chair, eyes suddenly unfocused. "She drained my accounts, took out cards, left bills everywhere." His fingers drummed against the edge of the table, restless and sharp. "I came home one day and everything was negative, every single thing." Hearing it in that rushed list made my chest tighten with sympathy. I am not made of stone, and pain like that hits you anyway. Still, I glanced down at the letters again and my brain did math. Whatever she did, the balances on those pages were still his responsibility. "So you are still carrying all of this on top of everything now?" I tried to keep my tone calm, tried not to sound accusing at all. He snorted and shook his head like I had missed something. "I am carrying what she dumped on me plus the interest they stacked." I pressed my palms flat on the table to keep them steady. "Why didn't you tell me before we started talking about a wedding?" It came out softer than I meant, which almost made me mad at myself. "You demanded a prenup and weekly budgets but hid this whole mountain." His eyes snapped up at that and the anger finally surfaced. "That is exactly why I wanted the prenup, because of this nightmare." He jabbed a finger toward the envelopes like they might jump at him. "You think I enjoy tracking receipts, I am trying not to drown again." The words hit me hard because I believed he felt trapped by this. At the same time, something cold slid in behind the sympathy. If he was already underwater, then our shared future was tied to that. I wondered quietly what else he had filed away as private. While we sat there, his phone started buzzing across the counter. He checked the screen, went pale, and snatched it up immediately. "Do not answer," I whispered, even though part of me wanted him to. He exhaled long through his nose, then hit accept and turned slightly away. "Yeah," his voice dropped to that flat tone I was starting to recognize. "No, I told you I am working on it." His thumb rubbed his forehead. "I already sent a payment last month, you people keep moving the target." I heard another pause, then his chair scraped as he shot to his feet. "You cannot threaten my job over this, we have an understanding." His free hand clenched into a fist at his side while he listened. Finally, he hung up with a sharp tap and tossed the phone down. The sound made me flinch, which he definitely noticed. "What did they say?" I asked, even though I already had a guess. He paced once back and forth, then stopped and stared at the wall. "They want a bigger chunk, they do not care how tight it makes everything." His shoulders rose and fell uneven like he was holding back an outburst. I swallowed hard and looked between him and T. He stack of letters. "So right now, every dollar we plan together is fighting this battle too." I was not accusing, I was trying to understand the size of the problem. He nodded once grudgingly, which somehow felt worse than a full confession. That is why I need control, he said, finally using the word outright. If I don't monitor everything, it spirals like before. I cannot repeat that. His eyes were bright and wild, more fear than rage, and it shook me. I am not going to let another person's habits wreck my life again. Another person's habits, that phrase landed between us heavier than the envelopes. I heard what he meant, but I also heard what he implied. You do not line up someone's coffee runs like evidence if you fully trust them. In that moment, I realized his trauma had already turned me into a suspect. I reached for his hand anyway because I still wanted to comfort him. His fingers were cold and rigid at first, then slowly loosened a little. I am not her, I said quietly, more to myself than to him. I just need honesty if I am going to help carry any of this. He looked down at our joined hands, then away like the sight hurt. I know you are not her, that is why I am trying so hard. He motioned toward the notebook on the counter, the budgets, the structure. This is how I make sure history does not repeat, even if it feels harsh. I nodded, but something fragile inside me bent at a strange angle. His fear made sense on paper, yet it was already rewriting our dynamic. Those letters were not just about unpaid balances anymore. They were the unspoken reason he kept testing whether I was worth trusting. Her name lit up my screen while I was rinsing a plate. I almost let it ring out, then I swiped before I could overthink. Hey, I tried to sound normal, like nothing was cracking under us. On the other end, his sister took a breath that sounded loaded. Can you stop by tonight? She skipped any warm-up, which shook me. It is about all this money stuff and about him. My grip slipped and the plate clinked harder than it should have. I knew right then this was not a casual hangout. I drove over with my jaw clenched and my mind racing. Part of me wanted to turn around at every red light. Another part wanted someone else to confirm I was not losing it. Those two parts argued the entire way until I parked outside. She opened the door before I even knocked and pulled me in. Her hug was quick and tight, then she stepped back to scan me. You look exhausted, her eyes, not her voice, made me want to cry. Is he on you about spending yet? The word yet hit harder than the question itself. I tried to laugh it off and failed halfway through the sound. What do you mean by on me exactly? My fingers twisted together. I already knew the answer, I just needed her to say it. She motioned for me to sit and stayed standing for a moment. Has he started writing down everything you buy? Her eyebrows lifted slightly. Little charts, end of the week reviews, that whole routine. It felt like she had been sitting in our kitchen during those audits. Blood rushed to my ears so fast I barely heard my own reply. We track things together, he says it keeps us responsible. The words sounded rehearsed once they left my mouth, like a script. Her mouth tightened like she had heard that line before. He did that with her too. She finally sat across from me. Started with shared planning, ended with him checking every dollar she touched. She rubbed her thumb over a faint mark on the table while talking. I kept telling him that was not love, that was fear. Hearing her use the word fear out loud jolted me. I had been using softer labels in my head to stay loyal. Look, I know she hurt him, I started, trying to be fair. But he controls everything now, and I am the one under the microscope. She nodded slowly, then looked me straight in the face. That woman wrecked his finances, I am not minimizing that at all. Her voice had this firm rhythm, like she had practiced this conversation. But he already had a thing about money before she ever showed up. That line startled me more than anything else she said. I had built this entire picture where the ex created the monster. You mean the tracking started earlier than her? My throat felt tight. I needed facts, not feelings, for once in this whole mess. She leaned back and crossed her arms, eyes never leaving mine. He has always hated uncertainty. Even as a kid, he tracked everything. Allowance, gas, group dinners, you name it. She shook her head once. Her behavior blew it up. Now he uses that as his excuse. I sank a little lower in the chair without meaning to. So when he tells me she emptied accounts and left him ruined, I could feel my voice wobble, which annoyed me and scared me. That is true, but it is not the whole story. It is not a lie, she answered, which somehow hurt more. He did get Stu. CK with loans and cards in his name. He also ignored red flags because he wanted to believe in the fantasy. He was not just a victim, he was also stubborn and controlling. The word controlling out of her mouth felt different than from mine. When I say it, I second-guess myself and soften it somehow. Hearing his own sister say it punched straight through all my excuses. I stared at my hands and knew my face gave everything away. She leaned forward now, elbows on her knees, voice slightly quieter. Has he ever asked you to show receipts for personal stuff? Clothes, coffee, anything that is only for you? Her eyes searched mine. Be honest, I'm not here to judge you. I laughed once, short and rough, because the answer was obvious. He goes through my banking app like it is his favorite show. If something looks unnecessary, we end up in a long talk. Sometimes I explain it twice and still feel like I stole something. She closed her eyes for a second like my words physically hurt. That is the script, that is exactly what he did with her too. Only difference is she leaned into it and spent more out of spite. You are doing the opposite, you are shrinking to make him comfortable. Shrinking, that word landed so hard my shoulders actually dropped. I realized I had been making myself smaller around him for months. It started with him asking me to track things for us, I whispered. Now I skip lunch just so the spreadsheet looks nice. Her eyes flashed with something sharp, something like protective anger. He promised me he was in therapy for this control stuff. He told me the next person he loved would feel safe with him. Her jaw clenched as she exhaled. You do not look safe right now. That pushed tears right to the surface, faster than I could blink. I do not know how to tell what is reasonable anymore. He has real debt collectors calling, a prenup, all that mess. When he worries about money, I feel like a gold digger by default. She let that sit for a moment, then spoke softer but very firm. Listen, he got burned badly, that part is real, I saw it. I also watched him tighten the screws afterward on everyone near him. He keeps saying never again and he uses you to prove it. Hearing that last part made my skin prickle from neck to wrists. He uses me how, I knew, but I wanted it plain. By testing you, she answered, no hesitation, no sugarcoat at all. He wants to see how much surveillance you will accept without leaving. I thought back to the prenup shoved toward me across the table. The weekly reviews, the way he framed my hesitation as suspicious. How long has he been doing that with partners? My voice came out hoarse. I needed to know if I was just another lab experiment. Since she did not flinch while she said it. First it was checking bank alerts at all hours. Then it was restrictions on joint accounts, rules about who pays what. Every time someone pushed back, he called them selfish or careless. The words selfish and careless echoed in my head like a chant. He had not used them on me yet, not directly, not out loud. Still, I had heard versions of them tucked inside softer sentences. Maybe you are being impulsive, maybe you are not thinking long term. I rubbed my eyes and realized my whole body felt wired and heavy. Why did you invite me here now? I finally asked her. Why not months ago when you saw this pattern starting? It came out harsher than I wanted, but I did not apologize. She accepted the edge in my tone and nodded slowly. I hoped he had actually changed after those therapy sessions. I wanted to give him a chance to be decent with you. Then he told me about the prenup and the weekly breakdowns. My chest did a weird lurch hearing that she already knew. He told you about that, but not about the collectors still calling. I looked at her, then away, because the mix of shame and anger stung. So I am transparent with him and he filters what he shares back. She sighed and tapped her fingers on her knee in a restless rhythm. That tracks. He shows us the parts that make him look responsible. He hides the panic and the pressure until it blows up on someone. Usually the person he is dating, right now that is you. For a second I hated him in a way that scared me. Then guilt jumped in because I know he is hurting and scared. I sat there split between empathy and the urge to run. It felt like choosing which version of him I believed more. She watched my face shift and did not interrupt for a few beats. When he talks about her, he makes it sound like she robbed him blind. That is not totally wrong, she did use him hard. But he also stayed long after he knew she was lying about money. So he chose to ignore it. The sentence scratched its way out. That means this is not just about someone tricking him once. It is about him needing to feel in charge of every decision. Even if that control crushes the person next to him. Her eyes softened, which almost broke me more than if she yelled. All I care about right now is that you see this clearly. You are not crazy, you are not greedy, you are not his ex. If you feel watched in your own life, something is wrong. My phone buzzed on the table between us and we both looked down. His name filled the screen with a new text preview underneath. Did you get gas? Send receipt so I can plug it in. My cheeks burned hot as her eyes flicked up to meet mine. You do not have to answer that right now, she said quietly. She slid the phone toward me but did not look away. You also do not have to marry someone just to prove you are not using them. That last line hit deeper than any of the numbers or letters. I turned the phone face down and covered it with my palm. For the first time, I let myself imagine not sending the receipt. Not filling out any more charts, not signing anything to reassure him. The fact that possibility felt like oxygen told me everything about where we were. I dropped the prenup in front of him hard enough to make him flinch. We are not talking about flowers until we deal with this. He closed his laptop slowly, like he needed a second to armor up. For once, I did not rush to soften the mood or add a joke. The venue wants the rest of the payment on Monday. He tapped the envelope. If this is still an issue now, maybe we should push the date. He leaned back, studying me the way he studies statements and charts. I could feel the threat inside his calm tone, waiting for my answer. I am not postponing my life just to pass your loyalty exam. I stayed standing because sitting made me feel smaller around him now. You wanted this contract, fine, then we both get protected inside it. My heart was hammering, but my voice actually came out steady. His eyebrows rose a little, like I had used a foreign language. Protected how? It already keeps things fair if we split. He slid the envelope closer and opened it with careful, deliberate movements. We have gone over this, it just says you do not touch my premarriage assets. Your premarriage assets include literally everything with value on here. I slid the pages around so I could point at the lines. If we divorce, you leave with the house, the accounts, your retirement. I leave with my clothes and whatever I did not buy with you. He frowned and rubbed his jaw like he was being incredibly patient. That is how this works when one person has more on the line. It is not personal, it is math and legal structure and consequences. There it was again, that math word he loved so much. I took a breath and forced myself not to start defending my own worth. I am not signing something that treats me like a possible thief. If we do this, we make it mutual across the board. He watched me like I had just suggested. We light his savings on fire. Mutual how? His fingers tightened on the pen resting near his hand. You do not have any big holdings I could claim. The way he said that made me feel smaller than any balanced number. Equality here is not realistic, that is just the truth. We make rules that bind both of us, not only me. I counted them off on my fingers so I would not back down. Full honesty about debts, agreed plan for paying them, shared decisions on big purchases. And if you want limits on what I can access, you accept matching limits. He let out a short laugh that carried zero amusement anywhere in it. So I get punished because someone else screwed me over already. He tossed the pen onto the table and shook his head slowly. You are supposed to be the one person on my side in this. I am on your side, but I am also on mine. The words surprised even me as I said them out loud. A relationship is not you on one team and me on defense. I will not build a marriage around proving I am not your ex. His face hardened at that, the way it always did when she came up. You talked to my sister, it was not a question, not even slightly. He must have seen it in the way I refused to shrink again. I told her some of this was private, she had no right. She had every right to care if you repeat the same pattern. I pulled the prenup back toward me and flipped to the signature lines. She watched you spiral once, she is watching you recreate it in a new shape. And I am the one standing in that shape now. He stood up so fast the chair scraped across the floor sharply. This is between us, not a family intervention about my character. His hands were on his hips now, shoulders rigid, breathing shallow and quick. She has always thought I am too strict, you know she is impulsive. I almost got distracted defending his sister, but I stayed focused. This is not about her personality, this is about your behavior with me. I tapped the paragraph that limited my rights to anything he ever owned. You want me to sign away any claim before I even move in fully. That is how I keep us safe if it all blows up. He paced once, then planted his hands on the back of the chair. You have seen those letters, you know how bad it got last time. I cannot risk being legally trapped again, not after that nightmare. Those letters explained your fear, they did not justify controlling everything now. I could hear my own pulse in my ears, steady and loud. I am not asking you to hand over your accounts with no plan. I am asking you to stop treating me like a walking red flag. He stared at me jaw tight, then looked down at the papers again. What would make you comfortable here? Spit it out, I am listening. He sounded like he was at a work meeting, not with his partner. That tone alone told me more than any paragraph in that contract. I will sign a prenup that says we both keep what we bring in. I laid it out clearly so I could not argue with myself later. We build new things together, those things get split fairly if it ends. And we agree to real counseling, not just you lecturing about budgets. His face changed at that last part faster than I expected. You want me in therapy again because you talked to my sister. He gave a short, sharp laugh and looked away toward the wall. You two comparing notes on how damaged I am now. This is not a roast about your damage, I am not doing that. I moved around the table so we were closer, not divided by paper. I want a future with you where we are not living inside spreadsheets. And I want a counselor to call us out when we slip into old habits. He stared at a point over my shoulder and shook his head once. I already put in the work, I fixed my situation after she left. I would not even need this prenup if I had not been blindsided. I am not going back to some stranger poking around in my life. So instead you poke around in mine every week. The sentence came out sharper than I intended, but I did not retract it. You comb through every transaction I make, but refuse actual accountability yourself. You see how backwards that is, right? His eyes snapped back to mine, colder now, patience gone. What I do is practical, what you are asking for is dramatics. He swept the pages into a neat stack and squared the corners again. If you cared about us, you would sign and stop turning this into a test. There it was, the twist that made my chest burn. He framed his condition as love and my boundaries as betrayal. I realized I had spent months swallowing discomfort to avoid this exact moment. Now that it was here, it did not feel confusing anymore. This is a test, I answered, hearing my own voice go very calm. You want proof I am not with you for your wallet. You think the only proof that counts is me giving up any safety net. And you will keep moving the bar every time I pass something. He opened his mouth, then closed it again like he did not like what he almost said. Finally, he exhaled hard and leaned on the chair again. I need certainty. Is that so horrible? Just certainty that you are not using me. He looked almost desperate now, which complicated everything inside me. Certainty does not exist like that, I answered, my throat tight but steady. You could marry a billionaire with 10 lawyers and still get surprised someday. The only thing you control is how you treat the person in front of you. And right now, you're treating me like a potential enemy you sleep beside. Silence stretched between us, thick and loud, long enough to hurt. I reached down and slid the ring off my finger slowly, carefully. My hand felt oddly light once it cleared my skin and my stomach flipped. I placed it on top of the prenup so he could not miss the point. What are you doing? His voice came out low and strained. He did not reach for the ring, which told me everything. I am not walking into a marriage where love is measured by how little I ask for. I folded my fingers into a fist so I would not grab it back. You are really ending this over paperwork and therapy. He almost choked on the word therapy like it offended him personally. You know what people will say, you violated because you would not sign. There it is, the stereotype you claim you are not. That line cut deeper than anything else he had thrown at me. For a second, old panic surged and I almost reached for the envelope. Almost, that is the word that matters in this part of the story. Because for once, I did not move to fix his narrative about me. They can think whatever they want, I managed, voice rough but clear. I know why I am stepping back, so does your sister, deep down so do you. If you ever want a partner instead of a suspect, you will need to face this. I met his eyes until he finally looked down away from me. He sank into the chair and pressed his palms over his face. For a moment, I saw the man who had cried over call. CD on calls. The one who had been abandoned with messes he did not make alone. I still cared about that man and I still walked toward the door. Reaching for my bag felt heavier than any suitcase I have carried. I heard him mutter something about me giving up too easily. I did not turn around because I had spent enough time defending myself. At some point, leaving is the only way to stop explaining why you deserve basic trust. When the door clicked behind me, my legs almost buckled from the release. I was leaving a ring, a venue, a version of our future on that table. I was also leaving a life where every purchase came with a cross-examination. For the first time in a long while, my worth was not up for audit anymore.